Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slasher U, a college basketball podcast here from Slasher Sports. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with my good old co-host, Steve Feck. And guess what, everyone? College basketball is here. We have 5 games for you on tonight's slate. It's a huge slate, but we got 5 games we think are worth watching, worth paying attention to. Majority of them are on ESPN Plus. Lots of fun things to talk about. Steve, it is going to be a fantastic day of college basketball that starts very early at noon. A lot of cool stuff. I'm excited for it. I know you are as well.
Yeah, well, 11:30 on the women's side, but yes, I've been waiting for this since we talked about the Slasher U project. This is what I've been gearing up to, going back to when I was I was a toddler, but 5, 6, 7 years old, literally walking across the street to watch college basketball. It's one of my favorite times of the year, and to be able to be a fan and talk about it's like a dream come true. This is a bucket list thing for me because I'm actually able to talk to other fans as a fan. I'm not a basketball coach. I'm not an analytics guru. It's just fandom. And it's about what games are going to be fun to watch, not necessarily breaking down the X and O's.
Here at Slasher U, we are going to give you plenty of previews and recaps and storylines throughout the season at college basketball on both the men's and women's side. Because we are heading into day one, we're probably going to give you a little more previews on this one. We will at least give you 1 to 2 games to watch every single night when we give you coverage here at Slasher U. And what better way to start off with a fantastic lineup of 5 games that you should watch on opening night. Steve, you ready to get started with the first 5, if you will?
I am. Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
All right. And the game I want to start off with, and I think this is a very interesting one, is George Mason against Auburn. When I look at this game, and we talked about it, we had our prediction show just last week. Auburn has lost a lot of players that really could change the entire perspective of not just their team, but the SEC. They brought in some great transfers. Bruce Pearl obviously knows what he's doing. One of the best coaches in all of college basketball, not just the SEC. But they have a tough task right off the bat. On our Atlantic 10 preview, we discussed that I believe that George Mason's the team to look out for. Kim English is one of those really good coaches on the rise. Last season, they were only 14-16. They had a losing record, 7-9 in the Atlantic 10. But they had a guy that came out of nowhere towards league play and became the Atlantic 10 scoring champion in Josh Oduro. And I think that he's going to really have a brand new role where the game is more revolved around him. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be really exciting for. I think they have a lot of really fun transfers as well. A couple coming in from Tennessee, where Kim English was an assistant coach before he came over to George Mason. They have the best preseason ranking for this George Mason team since they joined the Atlantic 10 in the 2013-2014 season. Steve, they were predicted by the coaches to finish 5th. I had them 6th. You had them 7th. Still pretty good. This is a team that we think can be pretty decent. But when you look at this Auburn squad, and I know I just spent a lot of time on George Mason, Auburn lost Jabari Smith Jr. and Walker Kessler. They got a lot of shoes to fill. This is a big task right off the bat to see if they can do that. George Mason is no easy first cupcake game, Steve.
No, and I think that it's good for both of these teams to be challenged right off the bat. I want to get to Auburn in a little bit, but I watched Kim English's media day interview, and I also saw him interviewed in a couple of other publications. And there were 2 points that he made over and over again. One, last year, he learned the players that he could lose with. And that's not necessarily a knock on the players, but a lot of those players moved on for him. Okay. So, and the second thing is, he keeps saying, you know what? We shoot well on the perimeter. We got 2 big guys on the inside, so we can defend, we can take care of the ball, we can create opportunities. We're going to have a good year. And I believe that. And I think we're going to see a lot of that emerge even in the first game of the season when everybody's kind of getting their bearings. They have one of the most electric, they're not necessarily the highest ranked, but one of the most electric recruits in Justin Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's 6'5", but his vertical game, from all accounts, and I looked up a couple of clips. I mean, you have to really dig, but this kid fascinated me, so I looked for them. This kid can jump. I mean, he has a vertical game. He's going to be able to rebound. He's going to play bigger than his 6'5" size, and his transition game is jaw dropping. I mean, he's just terrific, in transition. So that's another huge piece that English is adding to George Mason. There's a very international flavor to this team. They have an Aussie and Blake Jones that didn't really look comfortable. And I watched a lot of A10 basketball because you and I are both big A10 guys,
Yeah,
as you can
sure.
tell by my Duquesne Dukes T-shirt here. But I think he's learned sometimes, especially big guys, it takes them a year to transition from the international rules of basketball to the traditional North American, NCAA, NBA style basketball. I think he's going to have that kind of confidence coming through here. And there's a kid from Virginia Tech. He went by, I believe, Johnny was the name he had at Virginia Tech, but it is Jiyuko Ojiako. He graduated in 3 years.
Yeah,
at Virginia Tech.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That was crazy stat. Crazy.
Yeah, he wants to go. He wants to be a doctor, whatever it is. So technically, he's a grad transfer, but I think he would have 2 years left to play here. I think he's going to be a nice stabilizing force for the Patriots in the front court. So it'll be nice to watch these little things play out with George Mason. This is a team that's going to get better. They need to learn how to play with, which I think they had a tour of Australia. If I'm not mistaken, I think they toured Australia. So they have played together some. But, I think as the season goes, certainly by the time the AT season rolls around, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I said in our SEC preview that Bruce Pearl may have run out of rabbits to pull out of his hat. It's one thing to have people graduate, and he had 2 immense talents, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah.
Leave. And you have guys transfer in and out, whatever it would be. The problem is that Auburn's in the SEC. And there are 4 teams for certain, I think we could say without hesitation, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and Arkansas that are better, at least on paper, than Auburn is. Now, Bruce Pearl, his teams always play defense. He has 13 players that he says are going to play. I'm going to see significant minutes. So he's going to rotate things through, and that's great. But sometimes quantity does not equal quality. So I will be interested to see, not only in this opening game, but all the prelim games going into SEC play, how these role players adopt and adapt into what Pearl needs them to do in order for Auburn to be successful. I don't think Auburn's going to be bad. I think John Broome, who came in from Morehead State, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I don't know that we talked as much about him maybe as we should have during the SEC deal. Traore.
We talked about Broome a little bit because we think that he's going to be the guy that's going to have to fill the shoes of Kessler. And if you want to consider Kessler a one and done, at least for Auburn, because he transferred from North Carolina, Auburn has been shifting over to that new one and done deal. I don't think Broome's obviously one of those guys to do that, but I think he has no choice but to fill those shoes of Kessler. He's the guy that I'm going to be really paying attention to in this game, is on the Auburn side, at least, is Broome, because I feel like if he can get it going, then it's just going to just really just enlighten and just ignite, I should say, Auburn's offense.
Yeah, and the guy I'm going to be looking at is the guy that's probably going to be playing, opposite to him in the front court there in Traore, the French national. He did go to high school in the States, but he certainly had very solid, sometimes spectacular performances in international plays, under 16 and under 18 tournaments. I could see him adapting. I don't know. I keep saying adapting very well into Pearl's system. That's the guy I'm going to sort of focus on in this first game. But this is going to, I think, and there's a lot of good games. This is almost a must watch.
Yes.
Or at least DVR it and go back to it, because these are two teams where the ceiling is really, really high. But you'll know by watching these pre-conference games, is that ceiling going to come back down a little bit more? And I think Auburn has more to prove than even George Mason would in this game.
Yeah, this Auburn game against George Mason is on ESPN Plus, so it's a perfect lineup that if you can't watch it at the specific time, you can go back and watch a replay. That's exactly what I plan on doing. Heading into this matchup, George Mason has won 2 of its past 3 road contests against Power 5 teams. Something to keep in mind. Under first year of last year with Kim English, he had no problem against the ranked opponents. He beat number 21 Maryland last year, and he defeated SEC opponent Georgia. So that's the first time the Masons ever beat a road win over a ranked foe, which was last year. Could they do it again right off the bat against Auburn? Not sure. I'm not going to give a prediction this week because it's the first game of the year, folks. We're just excited. We want to give you some previews here. But George Mason and Auburn, this is going to be their second time ever facing off. If you want any kind of historic data on that, they faced off in the 2017-2018 season. Auburn won the game 79-63. I'm excited for this basketball game. This is one on my must-watch list, and that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about this one first. I am very excited for this basketball season. I keep watching. I have Rothstein on Twitter, and he's been putting out on the hour for about 48 hours now. College basketball starts in 47 hours, 46 hours. And he's putting out a tweet. And every time that tweet comes out at the top of the hour, I just get so dang excited. So dang excited, Steve. All right, let's move on to game number 2 on our list. And that's Murray State versus St. Louis. Another Atlantic 10 in the mix with Murray State, who moves over from the Ohio Valley to the Missouri Valley. And I think that could be something interesting. However, they were in the Ohio Valley for a long time. They were a founding member of that league, and they had no problem in that league last year. They found themselves in the tournament. They actually got a win in the tournament as well. They were 30-3 last year. Now they head to the MVC, and that is a tougher conference, and they might run into some struggles. However, they're going to run into a tough team right off the bat against St. Louis, who by many, and you and I both included, have them predicted to win the Atlantic 10, Steve.
Yes. And Murray State, not only are they changing conferences, they're changing coaches. McMahon's gone to LSU. And on the way out, he brought 3 players with him. So 10 of their 11 highest scorers from last year's roster are gone. Through transfer, graduation, they're gone. Their former coach, Steve Prohm, is back. He was fired by Iowa State. He had some success at Iowa State, but he had some tough years as well. And we talked about in our Big 12 preview, they didn't really do well on the offensive end of the things. Defensively, they're one of the best in the country, but offensively they struggled. So it's a rebuild, and it's a tough opening game for Murray State. But it's a good way for Prohm to see exactly what he has. Because in essence, through people that he brought in through the transfer portal and the JUCO additions and the recruiting class, this is really his team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is his team, and he's going to learn along with these guys how everything is going to merge. So it's going to be an interesting game. St. Louis, don't sleep on St. Louis, folks. St. Louis is going to not only wreak havoc in the A10. I have a feeling they're going to go to the 16 in the NCAA tournament. Javonte Perkins was hurt last year. In fact, a lot of guys were hurt last year for St. Louis, and they still had a terrific year. By all accounts, his knee is healthy. He's back. He's going to score.
Got to talk about Yuri Collins. I mean,
Well, I was just going to say Yuri Collins is.
oh, I want to
He,
see if he's able to get 8 assists a game this year again, like he did last year. Well, he was at 7.9 last year, but whatever. 8 assists per game in a tough Atlantic 10 conference, and then they have a tough non-conference schedule too. I mean, their month of November is no walk in the park. I think their only walk in the park is against Evansville, but they have a tough schedule, and they start off tough here against Murray State. I really like this St. Louis team. And it's a reason why you and I both decided that they should be one of the top teams in the Atlantic 10, the top team. We think they're going to be the team that can do it. Yuri Collins, though. I mean, we're on only the second preview, Steve. We haven't said it yet, but guard play.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got Perkins and Collins. I actually had in parentheses on my little note card here because I'm older and I have memory problems. People, I keep little note cards so I don't get lost. I don't have pronunciations written out here, but I do write notes down.
Nice.
I actually have in parentheses 10 assists, question mark.
Ooh, nice.
I could see him averaging double-digit assists because St. Louis has so many different weapons. Gibson Jimerson, I think he's going to have a break. He's going to be their breakout player, the player that people, it'll maybe take a little while in the A10 to kind of catch on, but it'll be like, oh my God, we maybe need to focus a little bit more on him too, because I think he's going to be a force. The early games, again, will challenge the depth players. We know what the starting five is going to do. We know what the sixth and seventh man is going to do. These early games, because of the tough schedule, are going to give us an idea how good and how deep and how tough this Billikens team is. They have been riddled with injuries and the COVID season. They could have probably gone to an Elite Eight. I think in that COVID season that got shortened and the tournament was canceled, that really was unfortunate for St. Louis. But even with all the injury problems, they won 23 games last year, and I believe the year before. The two full seasons, they won 23 games. I can't wait to watch St. Louis play on a regular basis, even though I know when they're playing Duquesne and some of the other A10 teams I follow, it will be kind of ugly. But if you're going to sit there and watch your team get beat, at least you want to see a talented team like St. Louis doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. We're going to see this game on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, also on ESPN Plus. Love that we're getting all these games on ESPN Plus, because if you can't watch them all, because it's just physically impossible to watch them all at the same time, you can go back and watch the replays, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. All right, third game on the slate, we want to talk about Oral Roberts versus St. Mary's. I like talking about this one here because Oral Roberts, we saw them do very well against the season last year, 19-12, 12-6 in their conference. They reached the Summit League semifinal. But this year, because of all the moves in the Summit League, the Golden Eagles are picked to win the Summit League by the coaches and the media. And we want to talk about some fun guard play. Let's talk about Max Adams.
Adams.
Oh, man. He is so fun to watch. Averaged almost 23 points per game and only 4 assists. But he is going – I mean, if you have to initially put out the Summit Player of the Year, I mean, that he just screams it. And I believe he was the Summit League Player of the Year last year, and he is the returning scorer for ORU. He is going to be a very fun player to watch. He was named Division I Preseason Player of the Year by the NABC. I mean, he was named Division I Player of the Year, not just for the Summit League. He has a lot of fun things to watch. If you want to pay attention to a really fun game this week on the Monday, you pay attention to Oral Roberts and St. Mary's. They have the opportunity to do some really fun things. The Golden Eagles won the Summit League tournament last year as the number 4 seed. They are on pace to do some really fun things. I'm excited for this one. And I haven't started about St. Mary's, but I'm going to hand it over to you. What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, again, and Max Adams, you could stop there and just be excited and know Oral Roberts is going to be good and take advantage of being able to watch teams like Oral Roberts. Because, okay, yes, they'll be on ESPN Plus and things like that. But once conference play starts to play, you get distracted. Your thoughts drift to the ACC and the Big 12 and the SEC. You can't help it because there's so many great teams there. So take advantage of watching this Oral Roberts team play. Isaac McBride is the other guy in the backcourt that can light it up. So their backcourt is the engine, okay, and it's a turbocharged engine. And Oral Roberts is going to be a matchup problem for everybody in the Summit. And there's some good teams in the Summit, but they're not as balanced. I think they're more shooters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like South Dakota State, North Dakota, South Dakota, those schools, much more of a perimeter game. Oral Roberts can get it done everywhere. Elijah Lufille really came into his own in the conference tournament last year. He bangs the board. He is just tough. He plays bigger than his size. I want to say he's listed at 6'9", but I think he's more like a Charles Barkley 6'4", 6'5". Just having watched him in that conference tournament last year, he's going to be the X factor for them. If he can dominate inside, and you've got the two guards just basically just up and down the floor, aggressive defense, shooting threes, driving the ball inside in the lane, then suddenly Oral Roberts could very well become not only the prohibitive favorite, and they've had problems during the regular season finishing at the top of the conference for whatever reason. It just seems they have good years. They just never finish at the top of the conference. But now suddenly this is one of those 13, 14, 15 seeds that when you're looking at your bracket and you see there's what Max Adams is doing and what McBride is doing and what Lufille is doing, you say, I think this might be my 215 upset or my 12, 13, 14 seed upset. Oral Roberts, another team with a high ceiling.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to jump in with St. Mary's and we'll get back to you here just real quick. The fact what St. Mary's has done is truly completely obscured by the elephant in the room, Gonzaga.
For sure.
Gonzaga is one of those sports stories that even now that everybody recognizes how good they are, Gonzaga's program's been good for 30 years. But under Mark Few, they've just gone to a whole other level. And St. Mary's has been operating in the shadow. I mean, they were a number 5 seed last year. But Gonzaga was so good, everybody thought that Gonzaga, being a 1 seed, was going to go into the Final Four and maybe even win a national title. St. Mary's the story got lost in the shuffle. They lost some big players to the NBA, but they have a top 25 incoming recruiting class, according to Lindy's magazine. So St. Mary's, don't weep for them. Okay. I mean, okay. Are they going to beat Gonzaga for the conference? No, I'm not even sure they're going to be better than BYU, but St. Mary's is a program that you need to support because of how they do it. They do it the right way, and they do it in the shadow of really, it's like an Uber presence in their conference, and they still get it done the right way. They don't try to cut corners or cheat. So St. Mary's and Oral Roberts, 2 teams you got to embrace. This is a game that you want to, again, watch it, DVR it. Even if you're watching part of it live, go back and watch it again, because you're going to see special players, special talents doing it off the radar.
10 o'clock Eastern for this game. Might as well throw out the elephant in the room here, since we were talking about pronunciations. We were already messing up the name of Max here. It looks like Max Abmas, right? Sportingnews.com actually came out with something during March Madness last year, so we might as well get our things right. His last name is actually pronounced Ace-Miss, A-C-E. Pretty interesting name. Not a bad name considering his potential to hit some big-time shots, right? Ace-Miss, Max Ace-Miss. How about that? All right, there we go. We're helping ourselves with this pronunciation guide.
But you know what? And he's not going to miss much, so it's an ironic name, an ironic pronunciation. But
I'd like that. Ace-Miss. I would, if by just looking at the spelling, never would I ever have thought that was the case. So thank you, sportingnews.com, for that one. All right, let's move on to our other game here. And I know you're excited about this one. You got the hat and everything to prove it. Mount St. Mary's taking on West Virginia. I know you are excited for West Virginia. I think a little more. We talked about it during the Big 12 preview that you are a little high on this team compared to maybe some of the others in the media polls and the coaches polls. What's your thoughts on this West Virginia team? And then let's talk about the game against Mount St. Mary's.
I'm excited about West Virginia because Bob Huggins is just gushing about this team. In fact, I think the exact quote was, "I'm excited about this team as much as I have been in quite a while." The West Virginians had some decent tournament teams. And he's even referenced in interviews about some of his big teams when he was at Cincinnati. Now he's been at WVU, it seems like forever. But he is like a savant finding people in the junior college ranks and community college ranks. Guys that he knows, have to really work twice as hard to be recognized because, again, the game's not on TV. They're not flying all over the country. They're taking buses, on pretty long, trips between games. So when he says that this group of JUCO transfers is among the best he's ever had anywhere, my ears perk up. Now, of course, I'm going to have that bias because I watch West Virginia probably as much as I watch any team other than perhaps Duquesne. I watch them because I live in that metropolitan area. I mean, Morgantown's about 30 miles south of me here in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Look out for Iowa transfer Joe Toussaint. I think Toussaint knew he wasn't going to get a chance with Iowa, that Iowa's just too loaded. In fact, I'll say again, I'll say it every week probably till they cut the nets for the Final Four. Iowa's going to be a Final Four team. I really believe that. He's going to give that consistent scoring option that West Virginia needed. I know West Virginia had a horrible year last year. I know that they've lost some other players also going out on the transfer. But Higgins knows that, okay, we didn't win with those guys, so fine. They can go. They can, sort of like Kim English, in George Mason. They can go. That's fine. West Virginia is going to be a team that if they gain that confidence early and before the Big 12 schedule starts, they could surprise some people and finish toward the middle of the pack rather than at the bottom of the Big 12.
I'm looking forward to this game as well. You're going to see this one at 7 o'clock Eastern. You can find it on Big 12 or ESPN Plus. This is going to be a good one. West Virginia is one of those teams that, anyone in the Big 12 could do something. You have West Virginia a little high. I have Iowa State a little higher. Just like we've seen in football, this conference can really shock some folks, and I think it will in some aspects. Maybe not at the complete top level of the Kansas and Baylor's. They might be at the top, but wait until, the seeds might not be what you think they are once we get to March and late February here. I'm excited for this one. West Virginia obviously is a team that we're going to be paying attention to a lot here on SlasherU during the season.
And this is actually a big regional rivalry. Okay, again, Mount St. Mary's certainly is not on the same level of West Virginia in the Big 12, but locally for local folks, in Maryland, Eastern West Virginia, actually the whole state of West Virginia, even parts of Pennsylvania, this is a regional rivalry. So there's more at stake to a game like this than you might see. That's the other great thing about some of the early season games. The quote unquote underdogs will really get up because in their local region where they live and play, that rivalry means a lot more than it would to the national media.
I love it. All right, last game on the slate here. We have two teams who we believe in our preseason rankings will win their conferences respectively. We have Penn. Well, at least in my mind, I had Penn winning the Ivy. You had them finishing second. Right. And then in this case, Iona, who we both had winning the Metro. With the coach that Iona has, arguably that's a really easy task. Well, it should be, right? And we think Penn's going to be a pretty good team. Even though you don't have them win the Ivy, you still think they're going to be a pretty decent team throughout the season. Iona is one of those squads that I feel like you got to pay attention to all year because Rick Pitino takes care of, he does some good basketball things. And they're one of those teams that if you don't pay attention to them, they're going to sneak up into the tournament and they're going to cause some upset, Steve.
Oh, absolutely. And they're bristling a bit, they're returning players, because they got upset in the conference tournament, lost to Ryder. That opened the path for St. Peter's. And then they saw St. Peter's, a team that they beat pretty handily during the regular season, then go to the Elite Eight. So there's a lot at stake there. A statement that I heard Pitino make a lot in this offseason, and maybe he made it when he first got hired there, but I don't remember it as being as prominent. He keeps calling Iona Gonzaga East. That's the model that he wants to build for Iona. Iona is not technically they're in the metropolitan New York area, but they're certainly not a New York City thing, but they can draw kids from there because they can say, look, your friends and parents can come up and see you. It's an hour drive. You can get on the train, whatever it would be. I think they're going to build through the transfer portal. I think they're going to go through the junior college ranks. I think they're going to look at international players. That's something that the Metro Atlantic, even the teams that don't compete every year, they generally have at least one international prospect that has a pretty high ceiling. I just think that Nelly Joseph is so fun to watch. And he's super fun to watch when he's playing against teams that are in the Metro Atlantic or an Ivy League team, or some of the smaller mid-major type things. He's just a men among boys, and that's the kind of talent that Gonzaga had done through the years, bringing those kind of guys that you have one player that dominates, then it's two, then it's three, and so he's sort of the poster child for Pitino's strategy of turning Iona into the Gonzaga East. That's just fascinating to me. But it shows you Rick Pitino is still Rick Pitino. He's a great basketball coach. He's brought, I don't know how many teams, 450 teams to the tournament, it seems. I know it's not that many, but every team that he gets, he brings them to the tournament and brings them to the tournament multiple times. I think he's building something here. As we were talking about guard play for Penn, that's what you got. You have Slashert, and you've got I want to say it's Daigle, but I think I'm mispronouncing that name as well. My handwriting's so bad I can't make it out quite the way that I thought I would do. Penn's your typical Ivy League team. They're pesky defensively. You feel beat up at the end when you're playing an Ivy League team, not because they're physical or they're bigger than you. You just have to work every minute of every game. Even if they're down a bunch, Ivy League teams will fight you tooth and nail to the bottom. This is going to be a fun game. It's a good test for Iona, and I think it's going to kind of flush out whether Penn is the premier team in the Ivy. We'll get a look at that here tonight.
Yep, 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Again, love the fact that ESPN Plus is on there. All right, there's 5 games for you to pay attention to for the men's side of it for tonight. There's going to be plenty of action throughout. If you're not interested in any of those games, check out the schedule because it is absolutely loaded. The majority of the 363 are playing tonight. We will have a smaller slate tomorrow, and we will get to that as well. We will see you back here tomorrow. Enjoy your night of college basketball. It starts at noon Eastern time, and there's some pretty good games right off the bat. Baylor plays early, number 5 ranked team in the nation. A lot of fun stuff to watch. If you're looking for more basketball content, check out the podcast feed or the YouTube. We also have a women's preview out for today as well. I hope you enjoy your basketball. We will be back here again tomorrow with more content here at SlasherU.
And if you're feeling a little under the weather, and you're kind of, I don't know if should I really go to work? I don't know. There's some pretty good women's games on.
Yeah.
At 11:30 in the morning.
Very early.
So you could still pretend that you're sick, sleep in a little bit, wake up, get some coffee and breakfast, a late breakfast, put on ESPN Plus, watch some women's basketball, watch Baylor. And so literally you could have a 12, 14-hour window where you're watching quality basketball throughout the day. Not that I'm encouraging you to call for work.
I am.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, but I'm retired, so I can do that. But if that's in the back of your mind, you just have that little tickle, pretend it's much worse.
Have a good day, folks. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care.